Good morning, Unitarians of Sierra Vista.
Good morning, Becky.
Glad you're all here. And to those on the magic of Zoom, hi. Okay, the first announcement is what? Turn your phones off. Yeah, okay, we got that taken care of. And thank you, Gareth, for all your music. You're really banging it up there with it. Good morning. I'm Becky Tanner, and I'm your facilitator for today. And you've already turned off your phones, so we're in good stead there. If you have an announcement that you wish me to read, or if you really it's important, you want to come up here and do it yourself, you can bring that up to me now, or if you have a joy or sorrow for the time we do joys and sorrows, you can bring that up. There's little papers to write on back there. I want to welcome everyone here and those on Zoom, and ask the people here if you'll stand up and wave at the Zoomers. Yeah, stand up and wave at the Zoomers. Okay. Okay, thank you. We have a few announcements today. The Freethinkers will meet at 1 o'clock. When do they finish? About 4:30, 5?
8 o'clock sometimes?
8 o'clock. So if you need some good talk time, you know, that's a place to go to spend your Sunday afternoon. And tomorrow, Monday, January the 19th, is Martin Luther King Day. And there is an MLK walk. We start at the Denny's until you can park in that shopping center parking lot, and we walk down to the Veterans Memorial Park. It's, what, a long block. It's not a big, long march, but it's there. We are also going to carry our big blue banner that's out there, and we need 2 people who are taller than me, because if I carry it, it drags the ground, and we don't want to damage it. It's very special.
What time?
We need to be at the park at the Denny's at 8:45. Okay, and you want to say something?
Well, I have one other person who's willing to help me, but still, it'd be great if people come, and I'm pretty short too, so someone taller than I would be great. And I have another person helping me.
Well,
so.
when short people, we have to carry it up over our face, and then we run into things, okay? And then Tina's office hours will be at their normal time, if anything's normal around here, Tuesday, January the 20th, from 12:30 to 2:30. If you set up an appointment ahead of time, you probably won't have to wait to see her. You might not have to wait to see her anyway. And then Truly Mindful Tuesday meditation is at 11 o'clock on Tuesday, January the 20th. And they meet in here. Also, this coming Friday is our EAF day from 11 to 3. No?
Nope, we had it last.
You had it last time. Okay. My mistake.
It's okay. We do it the 3rd. It's been confusing.
Isn't this the 3rd? No, this is the 4th. Oh, never mind.
It's okay. It happened in the middle of the week. So
Yeah, it's in the middle of the week. And then there will be another rally at Veterans Park on Tuesday, January the 20th, from 2 to 3:30. That's when we get out there with our posters and woo woo. You don't want me to do that inside a house. It's a protest rally against you know who. Yeah, it's a protest rally. There was also in the bulletin that went out, there was an error. There's no men's lunching this coming week. They ate last week. So they, and
they could go a whole week.
Also, a few of us ladies, we sit at a different table and we eat at the same time the men do. And you're welcome to join us. It's fun. Anytime you eat, it's fun. Okay, and then I I think I've read all of the
I
announcements.
just want to make one extra one. It's, I don't like springing something on you in the middle of worship. It's like saying, tell me a joke right now. We did it one week and you guys were great, but that was by mistake. So I'm preparing you. Right after the sermon, there'll be a time that you can come up and light a candle. Think about some conflict in your life you want to face in a healthy, constructive way. This can be aspirational, don't worry. And if you want to say what it is, I'll have a mic and you can say it and then take your candle and light. If you don't want to say what it is, if you just want to light to people you love, people who've been hurt recently, the state of the world, whatever, it's an extension of joy and sorrows as well. And if you can't get up, Ted in the back will come and bring you a microphone, and I'll light you a candle. Alrighty, so just raise your hand and he'll come to you then. So that's after the sermon, just giving you time to think about it.
Good, thank you. Okay, now is the time for our chalice lighting. We offer you Our Conflicted Feelings by Molly Kilmet Jenkins. As we light this chalice, please hear these words. O Spirit of love, we offer you our conflicted feelings, our apprehensions and our aspirations, the fear of the unknown. O Spirit of love, we acknowledge that you are in our midst. Circle this place and make it your own. Keep peace within, keep evil out. May all memories, influences, or power that are not you flee from this place. May the Spirit of love guard and welcome us as we turn our eyes upon each other. Calm us, settle us, help us feel at home with ourselves and with one another. So there is no need to pretend. Help us be ourselves and to welcome new faces and as our family. I didn't ask if there are any visitors, and I know there's somebody I didn't know that came in. Does anybody want to identify themselves?
You don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah, you don't have to. Okay. Oh, okay. I can't see you. I'm too short.
Sorry, I'm short too.
Welcome. We're glad you're here. We are a caring congregation, and we share what gives us joy and what weighs heavily on our hearts. I will read joys and sorrows now. I don't have any. If there's somebody on Zoom that wishes to have a joy or sorrow mentioned, you can either put it in the chat or you can turn off your mute and just spout it out and we can hear you. No? No one? Okay. Are there any joys and sorrows from others out here? Well, I have a very big sorrow. I'm concerned about the brutality going on in Minnesota. We have been in Minnesota. We spent one whole summer there. It's a beautiful place, and the people are beautiful. And they do not deserve to be treated like trash. And that is a very big sorrow. That's worth 2 rocks. Okay. Does anybody have a happiness? Oh? I'm happy you're here. Yeah, I'm happy. It's a good turnout today. Okay, so I'm going to add rocks for what?
I have a joy.
Go ahead.
Well, you have to do it in a microphone so they can hear you on Zoom. And Ted, can you, sorry. No, it's good. I should have thought of that.
That's good.
I have a friend who has, for about 25 years, struggled with addiction, substance abuse addiction. They called me this morning, They have been totally clean and sober for the past 110 days, and they have just secured a job, and they are moving into a sober living house from a rehab that they put themselves in because they finally realized that life was just too hard. So I have a great joy for them that they figured that out and that they're doing well now.
That is a great joy.
Is there anyone else?
I will add stones for all those joys and sorrows that we hold in our hearts and in our minds.
The book, Everything Changes and That's Okay, talks about impermanence and how the Buddha says that when we cling to things, when we don't accept impermanence, that's when we feel extra pain, extra sorrow. That learning to accept impermanence can be helpful. Now, some of those expected changes are ones I still have problems with. There's that whole page about we read a book and turn each page, learn more each day as we age, black hair slowly turns to gray, wrinkles come that won't go away. Why not? You know when you were little and you slept on wrinkled sheets and you had wrinkles on, those went away and they still do, right? Oh, why don't those furrows go away? So there are some expected things about impermanence that are still hard to accept, right? Losing people we love, losing abilities, having things, some of those changes are hard. And they talk about life as like a river, even if you step in at the same place, because the river flows, it's always different. What about what happens when that river is thrown off its banks, when everything suddenly is an upheaval, as happened in the end of the 19th century in Tombstone, when an earthquake changed the water table and all those silver mines were flooded and mining came to an end? What about changes that cataclysmic? Are we supposed to sit calmly and learn about impermanence? In the next slide, I want to point out that it was Reverend Theodore Parker, who lived from 1810 to 1860, who said the quote that's often given to Martin Luther King Jr., I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but a little way. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice. He was an abolitionist. He had a lot of faith. What happens when that arc doesn't seem possible to bend? What if it's bending us? What if we have to hold on for dear life to bend it towards justice? He clearly was living through a cataclysmic time in the history of these United States. And I think we are too. So how do we find change, affect change in ways that make sense? And today, in honor of Martin Luther King Jr., I looked at types of change that actually come through conflict, but conflict managed carefully and well. The first song we heard today, we are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. I've told the story of how this is written, but it's kind of like Amazing Grace. You have to tell the story every time now that you know it. It was written by Holly Near the night that Harvey Milk was assassinated. And she was in San Francisco, and she was going to a gathering. And on the way, she thought, we need a song. And I need to capture the anger, but I don't want to talk about fighting. You have to be honest, but I don't want to be violent. So she came up with, we are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives, which makes a lot of sense in that context. And the other song we heard talked about being in a holy place and really listening to each other. And that is part of how we do conflict in a way that affects change. So first, of course, in honor of Martin Luther King Day tomorrow, I want to talk about, because we should talk about it at least every quarter, the type of conflict that he introduced in some ways into the world. Also thanks to Gandhi, also thanks to Tolstoy, also thanks to David Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau. The understanding of nonviolent conflict, the understanding of showing up with a force of love, but being nonviolent about it. And there's nothing easy about that, right? They had to train people how to protect themselves without lashing out, how to be ready to be beaten without beating back. But it's incredibly effective. It's very hard, and I've talked about this before, it's very hard to see systemic violence. It's very hard to see racism and to see what segregation was doing in the South clearly in front of you. It's easy to see when people riot and break shop windows and burn things, but it's not easy to see the counter-violence that created that. But through nonviolent protest, he showed it, especially when children were marching peacefully and then were attacked by dogs and water cannons. And the whole country saw this. And there's no way you could label young children of any color terrorists or illegal immigrants. And so it had an effect on our country. We could see violence through nonviolent action. But it is incredibly hard to keep up. And I often quote the work of Erica Chenoweth. She went to an event that Maria Stephan was at, and Maria was talking about the power of nonviolence. And Erica thought that was pie in the sky, ridiculous. And so Maria challenged her to study the effects of nonviolent and violent insurrections. And she discovered the nonviolent ones were 3 times more likely to succeed. Now things may be changing, but it's really powerful. All the research showed that a nonviolent approach, as difficult as it is, works much better. Think about if you're a smaller state and a bigger state oppresses you. If you respond with traditional weapons, you're not going to survive. Our Civil War took a long time to play out, but you could foresee the outcome when a smaller state used its weapons against a larger one. Violence, and if you don't succeed, or even having just done a nonviolent action, sows seeds for later ones. It's very powerful. So I wanted to celebrate that today. Let us never forget. Even if we embrace conflict and bring it forward, it's very important, I believe, to do it the Gandhi, Tolstoy, Henry David Thoreau, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. way, with a powerful force of love. And how do we do that in other ways? How do we embrace conflict? How do we do that, let's say in the middle of a board meeting in church? Does conflict have a place there? Or should we hide it and never argue? Well, it comes down to having our heart in a holy place. And actually, according to the next slide, Teresa Cooley, who wrote a book about transforming conflict, the blessings of congregational turmoil, she's another 8 on the Enneagram. She goes for high conflict. But she talks about how conflict can be addressed in a healthy way in churches. And a lot of it has to do with listening to each other. First, you have to understand yourself. Have you ever found yourself in a discussion and it's running away from you? And you can tell you have lost control of yourself, and you don't understand why that argument always gets you, and you cannot keep quiet? Perhaps this has happened to you at a Thanksgiving dinner. Perhaps this has happened with a spouse. It's important to take a deep breath, Cooley talks about how we can't really lower anxiety, which is a really important step, unless we do it in our bodies. Because we have that reptilian brain, that amygdala, that sees a snake, yells snake, and either runs, freezes, or attacks the snake. It doesn't take time to think, right? It's there for survival. But when you do that in a board meeting or at a Thanksgiving dinner, it's disastrous, right? So she recommends just taking some deep breaths, feeling your body, being grounded, taking time. My mother used to make us count to 10, and we could swear by yelling yellow sweater in Russian, just to get ourselves calmed down and able to think more creatively about the situation we're in. And once you start to understand what triggers you, you're encouraged to actually listen to other people. Chris Argyris wrote Overcoming Organizational Defenses, and he talks about the ladder of inference, that we start with facts, but then we quickly go somewhere else with them. So have you ever been with someone and you're talking about the same facts, and then suddenly you end up very different places? Subconsciously, thanks to the experience we've had in our lives, we don't even realize we're being pushed into assumptions and decisions and positions. We don't even realize that. She gives the example of a young couple who move in with each other. And the young man doesn't want to tell his mother until it's a done deal because his family's Catholic. Her family is more liberal, but his family, he knows his mother's going to react, but he isn't prepared for her yelling in the background, "But what about the baby? Who's taking care of the baby?" And they're like, "Baby?" She had gone so quickly up a ladder. So she started with, they're living together. Well, he's a good Catholic boy, so he can't be using protection. And clearly if they're living together, and so clearly there must be a baby. And I like the way she, Cooley sums it up with, if we're not careful, we'll run up that ladder and create babies that aren't even there. Right? But have you ever found yourself talking with someone and suddenly something that you thought made sense, you thought would appeal to them, has them going off the deep end? Cooley talks about going into a church and talking to them about being a welcoming congregation. You go through a process and you talk about being open and welcoming to people who are LGBTQIA+, and you talk about your past and how you're going to continue to learn to do better. One of our songs talked about being gay and straight, but not anything else, not non-binary, not trans, right? We're always learning and growing and needing to change things. And so Cooley was with a congregation, she was an interim, and she talked to them about becoming welcoming, and they had no interest. She was surprised. They didn't seem homophobic, they didn't seem... She found out that a few years before, when they went through the process, 2 people stood up and yelled at each other. So the church didn't want to face that again. It had nothing to do really with the issue. It was more to do with how these 2 people reacted. And that's the important thing. She says you should come with more at the bottom of the ladder with the things you're aiming for, your hopes. You don't come with a position. We must do this. One church member said, "Well, we've got to build an annex." And everyone was horrified. We don't have the money. Whereas when she came saying, "We need more space. I want to have people be comfortable," then they could talk about it. It was further down that ladder, right? So just as we have the things that trigger us, the people we talk to have them as well, right? And I so wish there were a way to implement this in our larger country right now. Wouldn't it be great if we could breathe, feel our bodies, and listen to each other lower down that ladder? And it's really important to start with yourself. I I love Andrea Gibson. She's a poet who just recently died, very young, of cancer. And she talks about going to the Grand Canyon twice. The first time, she said, I was really low, full of shame, didn't like my body, told myself lies. I go to the Grand Canyon, and all I see is this hole in this dried out piece of dirt that was too hyped, too disappointing. And years later, she goes back and she says, will it be a disappointment again? But this time, she's really high. She's just discovered spoken word poetry, which she became beautiful at, and I love her for. And she was so excited, and she was feeling good. And then she said, oh my goodness, I could see 6 million years of river licking out this earth. And it was awe-inspiring. And she said, she quoted Anais Nin, we see the world not as it is, but as we are, right? So she says, when I'm only seeing the wrongness in someone or something, the first thing I do is check for what's not right in here. You know, we know that Bible verse about when you see a speck in someone else, take the log out of your own eye. It's the same idea. When you see wrongness, and that's all you see, chances are something's going on in here. And it's very hard sometimes to see. Would that we could do this at a higher level with other people in our lives, but I recommend that we take a deep breath, that we feel ourselves, that we get into some form of holy place through some form of spiritual exercise in the midst of all the crazy. And we see that we're in the middle of systems that keep reproducing themselves. Do you ever see that a church keeps doing the same things even though it's changed hands and no one's there anymore who was there in the beginning, and yet the church sort of has a story, a personality? Also, churches do change. And very often, when you join the church, that's the church you have in your head. But now other people join, and it's a different church. How do you talk across those differences? How do you stay awake to that? Well, by being non-anxious, by asking yourself the crazy things you're doing, by asking people, you say one thing, but you do something else. You know, you say you're really committed to creating a beloved community, but then you fight at coffee hour or whatever form it takes. That will show you where you need to breathe deeply and really seek out what the conflict is to understand what the change needs to be. Because when it's healthy, when you listen, when you hear, then you grow. I'm sure I've talked about, I was at a seminary in Chicago that was 40% African American. Many of the students came from Trinity UCC, which is the church that Obama belonged to early on. And so we had a really high population. It was wonderful, and I learned a lot, but there was a lot of conflict in that learning, and really embarrassing moments for me. Like the day we were talking about our harassment policy. And I said, why do we have to make the poor victim prove so much that they've been attacked? And the African American men looked at an African American woman and said, can you explain it to her? And of course, I wasn't thinking about lynching, but they were. That kind of conflict helps you grow. When you have the kind of trust that someone can give you guilt, not shame. Someone can help you see how your behaviors have been harmful, but that you're not necessarily a horrible, awful, irredeemable person. Right? So in this time, I invite all of us to take deep breaths, to find a holy place. And the only thing we can't change a system by telling it to change. What can we change? Ourselves. how we react to it. If you're expected to act a certain way, don't. Be different. Be surprising. Listen. Be empathetic. And maybe we can get down to lower on that ladder. I've talked about years ago when the Iraq War started. I was working at a church in Chicago, but I went back to Washington, D.C. with a group of seminarians to study how we did lobbying on the Hill. And as the war was starting, we decided to take part in a protest. When I got back to Chicago, they'd seen me. They'd seen me on TV. I thought I was hidden. And they said, so why were you protesting? And this was a little more conservative part of Chicago and a more traditional church, and I panicked. I know I've told you this story, forgive me, but I saw a man there in uniform. And of course I really panicked. And then I said, but I went down the ladder. I didn't give my position. I gave my wants, desires, hopes, needs. And I said, I just don't want to see people die needlessly. And he said, yeah, I don't either. Everyone left without me yesterday. I'm staying behind. But everyone I work with is now there. I don't want to see that either. And at that level, we could talk. So right now, I'm inviting you, if you wish, to come up and light a candle and say a conflict you'd like to change. And the reason I'm doing that here is that as Cooley says, church is actually a place where we seem to deal with trauma. A good way to deal with trauma is to breathe deeply, sing or hum, stand, move, do expected rituals. And so I thought maybe we could lower our anxiety, give ourselves more creativity, hope, and aspiration here in church. If to the lovely music that I know will be lovely that Gareth will play, you come up and I'll hand you if you want to speak, you can speak in the microphone. If you can't get up, raise your hand, and Ted is our runner. And if no one comes up, well, that will be interesting. Sorry.
When I am in conflict, this isn't exactly a conflict, but when I'm in conflict, I like to think about where I sit to drink my coffee in the morning in my chair, and the only sound that I can hear is the coffee cup sitting back down on the coaster, and I'm looking out the window at the sunshine, and that brings me down that ladder.
So the Unitarian Universalist Association has invited ministers to go this coming week to Minneapolis to support. And I'm covering for someone. I just can't suddenly go. Reverend Matthew would like to go, but his wife gets to go on a vacation. But I'm hoping that this will be a good, positive experience for them, that in some way the country will take up.
I have a real conflict. My father fought in World War II, and he was very proud of that. He passed away when I was 13, but he told me often about how proud he was of what he did fighting against fascism and Nazism. And my conflict is that now I feel like if he were alive, he'd feel the need to fight against us.
How do we take on this conflict, from a holy place?
going to share my conflict I'm dealing with, which is my, I guess, ongoing and probably unresolvable struggle between a belief in a higher power and logic and reason.
I'd like to share that I think the political situation is causing conflict among families and friends.
I don't know if this is really worthy of being called a conflict. We seem to have a disagreement into whether the flag belongs on the platform of our church.
Yes, that sounds like a good disagreement to have lovingly with each other and grow from another day.
The conflict of they and them, I'd like to see that end. We are us, not they and them.
Okay.
I guess I didn't have anything too specific, but thinking about conflict in general, I know that sometimes I can feel conflicted. I feel it in my body where like something's going on and I just feel conflicted about it. So I just wanted to share that.
And I often find if I work through that, I grow a lot. What is that conflict telling me about something that needs to change?
I mentioned last week I'm from Minneapolis, and years ago, I haven't lived there since the 70s, but years ago, a large contingent of Hmong people moved to primarily St. Paul. And then I was not aware that they had such a large Somalian community. And this did not surprise me. You know why? Because Minnesotans are very loving people and get a little emotional, and they're accepting of people of different nationalities. So, I mean, I was living in California and all that, but I said, no, this is normal. This is the way Minnesotans are. And so I hope the conflict will end very soon. Because those people are kind people, they're good people, and they shouldn't be vilified. So it didn't surprise me. I'm real proud of my state, if you didn't know already.
Thank you. When I have a conflict, I often take a walk. That helps. But I think even better is look on the lighter side. For example, Chester was lying down, taking it easy, and his wife, Margie, says, "What are you doing, Chester?" And Chester says, "Nothing." Margie says, "Wait a second, you did that yesterday." And Chester says, "Wait, I wasn't finished."
Will you light the candle?
Yes.
I've been in a big conflict for at least 3 years now. After my heart attack, I was in an assisted living place in Tucson, and my daughter and my son took care of me, and I wanted to come home. I wanted to come back to this church and my doggies, and so I did. And my daughter said, "That's it, I'm through." And she's never spoken to me. There's been absolutely no contact. And I tried at first. And now I have to realize, and I realized about 6 months after that she's stubborn, and there's going to be absolutely nothing I can do. And so I just try and forget it, but it's, you can't forget it. You haven't seen your grandkids, and there's just some conflicts you can't hold anymore. You just have to. You just have to talk about it. And you're my family, and you're the ones I wanted to come back to. So, anyhow, thank you.
And we're so glad you did.
Sorry.
No. All right. Well, there'll be more to come, but may we speak in love the truth to each other.
I personally am a very patriotic person. I'm here because I'm a Unitarian Universalist, but I'm also here. I'm an American, and I'm proud of my flag, and I don't want people taking it away.
The
Right.
flag discussion is one we'll have later.
I know.
But churches have this up for many different reasons. You could think it's just for patriotism. There are churches who have it up because it was donated by a family whose son was killed in Vietnam. You never know exactly what things mean until you talk about it and excavate it together. There's a lovely story about a man in a Methodist church. They're moved around, and he went, and he got there late at night, and he saw this tree that was about to fall on the church. So he did them a favor. He cut it down. Turned out John Wesley had planted it, and they had been keeping it alive for centuries. Yeah, he didn't last long there. We don't know what. So someday we'll excavate the meaning together.
Today, the words of Reverend Lisa Garcia Sampson, who is the executive director of the Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry of North Carolina, gives us these words. Spirit of life and love, Spirit that lives within us and between us and amongst us right now, within this beloved community and in our work for collective liberation, may we continue to weave the web of trust and care to keep our bodies safe. But more than that, may our bodies be the site of healing, joy, and freedom. May we refuse to let our spirits be depleted and hardened by the forces of hate. Instead, may we open ourselves to be nourished and transformed by the movement for justice, knowing that our collective story is not what we are fighting against, but what we are fighting for. For ours is the work of creation. Ours is the work of inviting people into an irresistible movement rooted in our belief that a new world is possible. And the center of our work is love and joy and the spirit of abundance. These are the things we are fighting for, and these are the things we are fighting with. May we know deep in our bones that this is the call of our faith. Amen, and blessed be.